A very good afternoon to one and all present here, and I sincerely welcome you all to a webinar hosted by Asian Business School, which shall be centered around the most absorbing topic of the time, upskilling talent, competency, and effectiveness. And to enlighten us on this topic today, we have amongst us our honorable guest for the event, Mr. Jaswant Sharanti, Head Human Resource Management, Kevin Gare. His LinkedIn profile gave me some interesting facts about him as an individual. Mr. Jaswant is an astute professional with a high self-motivation disposition which has helped him assume leadership and initiate proactively. He leverages his strength of high idea orientation and risk-taking abilities to derive new solutions in uncertain situations. He performs to his utmost potential in unique work situations with diverse team members. Mr. Jaswant is presently working for Kevin Care, a leading FMCG group, in the capacity of leading learning, talent, and organizational development function. Before this, he had a brief stint in MRF, IPL, Mahindra, and SR. He is a management graduate from School of Inspired Leadership with mechanical engineering degree from Amrita University. With sincere gratitude, we welcome you, sir, to Asian Education Group. And now I would like to pass on the platform to you so that you can enlighten our students today with your knowledge.
Thank you so much, I'm so humbled to be part of this lead lecture session of your institute. So I'm so glad to be part of this. So let me make it very clear. This particular session is not a learning session only for you guys. That is for for the students. It is also a learning session for me as well, because the interaction should make me also learn. That's the whole pursuit towards offering this, delivering these kind of lectures across the schools across India. So I'm so glad that I've been invited for this particular forum. So I can I share the screen, please?
Sure, so we'll give you the access.
Yes,
Just a
please.
second. So please check if you're able to share the screen.
Yes. Garima, can you confirm if the screen is visible?
Yes, sir, it is visible to us.
Okay. So before I start, like I said, during the initial session, along with Professor Garima, Ravi, and Himanshu, I want the session to be very interactive, where I need all these students also to participate as much as possible, so that the learning is great enough for me as well. So with this, before we get on to the crux of this session, more to do with HR and talent and competency and everything, I thought I'll just go through the very macro perspective of where we are today and how we are today. So can you all guess what it is? Karima, students have the access to unmute themselves, right?
Sir, as this is a webinar, students won't be able to interact directly with you. So
Okay.
probably they have the access to the Q&A section here. They can write the answers there, but that will be probably a slow process if we're going to take that live.
Okay, great. Fine, then I will go ahead. So it would have been interesting if the interaction has been there, but nevertheless, we'll go ahead. So this is basically, a quantum computer that is developed by Google. They've spent a lot of years developing this particular thing, so by developing this, Google claims that they've achieved quantum supremacy. The reason why they claim themselves to be the quantum supremacy, the reason is because this particular machine takes roughly 200 seconds to solve a complex problem which the present supercomputer, okay, the today's supercomputer takes roughly 10,000 years, okay, which means the machine which is there in front of us, not in front of us, basically the supercomputer which is there, in the world, takes close to 10,000 years for the same complex problem. The Google, the Sycamore, which is in the left hand side, that takes only 200 seconds to come out with a solution. So why do I wanted to start with this whole thing is, the reason is because I wanted to say the world is huge, the opportunities are humongous. Nothing can stop us if you have the determination to grow better than what you are today. When a person can, when an Indian specifically, so Mr. Sundar Pichai, who is heading the complete Google, can develop a project of this sort, why not all of us? That's the whole point which I'm trying to make. Especially in the opportunity starved environment because of COVID, especially students like quite anxious of what my placements are going to be, what my what my future is going to be with respect to employment and everything. I'm here to say that the world is huge and humongous for you to just go experiment whatever you want and see there is a lot to prove in this world. That's what I wanted to say. So with this, I'll go ahead with the starting of the presentation. Um, so in the budget, FY20, our finance minister did mention that we are going to grow, we are going to become a $5 trillion economy by FY2024. But what really happened? Of course, she had a couple of parameters like road development, railways development, agricultural development, and other many amenities all put together. She said that like our country is going to grow almost to the GDP level of close to 5 trillion. But what really happened? Because of COVID, what really happened is the complete world economic outlook looked very, very dismal. In fact, the H2 of FY21 is going to be almost 7% lower, or it's going to contract 7%, is something which is expected. So what this primarily means is volatility is killing everybody's dream. It has killed our finance minister's dream. Of course, it has killed my dream, it has killed your dream, it has killed Professor Garima's dream, or Ravi's dream, or for that matter Himanshu's dream. It could be anything for that matter. Many of the employed people have taken pay cuts, and many of the employed people have been given indefinite leaves without the pay. A lot of things have happened across. So it is not only you are suffering, it is also us who are suffering. That's what I'm trying to say here. So volatility is killing everybody's dream, including your students' dream of getting placed in a good company. It could be anything for that matter. So volatility has killed everybody's dream. Second thing what I wanted to share is the famous pyramid model, base of the pyramid. This is how it looks as of today, which says the bottom of the pyramid is quite huge, making it a triangular shape, a pyramid shape, or whatever you call it as. But what really happened now, so what was guessed, is there was an expectation that middle class would surge globally across, making sure the famous pyramid model would look something like this, which means the belly of the pyramid would be expanded, whereas the bottom of the pyramid would be shrunk. And this is what was the expectation, this is what was the prediction as well. But what really happened? India, our country is with a lot of contradictions, of whatever we are. The average consumption, consumer spending by a person fell from almost 1,500 rupees to almost 2,446 rupees in the FY 2018, which means it would have gone furthermore down, by FY 2021 because of COVID, of course, not to say, So what does this mean? It basically means uncertainty is the only certain thing, which is going to keep us moving across. So, volatility is killing our dreams, and the uncertainty is the only certainty which is there for us. Next is, Sensex hits, 40,000, 345. Of course, this is, quite an old story, when the US Fed rate cut is happening. So why should Sensex hit high because of, US Fed, cuts the rate? So no connection between what US does and what India does, right? Of course, we are living in a globalized world, but nevertheless, why should a Sensex, grow, touch the roof, or, because of US cutting the US Federal Bank cutting the rate. Similarly, emission in Gurgaon, is affecting the Arctic ice sheets across. So where is Gurgaon and where is our Arctic? So it's completely different, planes of our this ones, but definitely, emission here is cutting, affecting the ice sheets over there. The trade war between US and China is the showstopper for the global economy. So we are getting affected tremendously because of the war, the trade war between the US and the China as well. So why are we getting affected, right? So what does this mean? So we're living in a very complex world. That's what I'm trying to say. So no more simplicity, as complexity is not going to be resolved forever. Which means, this complexity, whatever we've built thus far, is going to get complex and complexer, or whatever, it gets furthermore complex. That's what I would say. It's not going to get resolved. So so volatility is killing the dreams, and uncertainty is the only certain thing, and complexity cannot be resolved further. Coming to next thing, what I want to share is corporate world and India is in the cusp of digital transformation. I'm sure most of you would be knowing. I'm sure students. Um, Being the millennials, you would have started of course using everything on digital medium, right from your payments to your Netflix to Prime to anything for that matter. Everything is gone digital, right? So of course, we also, corporate world, and of course, the government of India also, is in the cusp of digital transformation, which is Industry 4.0. So that's what is the famous, because Modi, our Prime Minister Modi, has also been very, very vocal about making sure our country is very digital, and the focus is towards making sure it's a right from our toll plazas to everything has become quite digital, right? So we are somewhere, seeing, we are somewhere getting into the era of, digital transformation. But there are a couple of facts which are putting, this whole dream into a very, very uncomfortable, move. So what does that say? The per capita consumption of steel is at 61 kg, whereas globally it's at 208 kg. What does this mean? So steel is a very, very primary parameter for economic growth, and we are looking at only 61 kg per capita consumption. That is, I am consuming only 61 kg of steel, whereas you're consuming roughly 61 kg of steel. That's what is happening per capita consumption of steel. Whereas if you look at global, it is around 208 kg. So which means, look at where we are and where we need to travel with respect to infrastructure development. Now coming to cars, we India as a country has only 22 cars per thousand people, whereas China, US has 838 and China has close to 172. And how beautifully we compare China with India, right? So without even thinking of where we are, we are at a very, very minimal and a base level of the economy, is what I'm trying to say. Then the per capita income of India is still at rupees 1.13 lakh per person per annum, which means, all put together, Indian population, working population, is earning only 1.13 lakh per annum per person, which means, so whatever I'm drawing today, if it gets split across, like another, it's a simple average, divided by the population of whatever the income of our country is with respect to the working population. So it's at a mere 1.13 lakh per person. So it is not even, I think it's not even, say 15 or 20k, not even 20k, definitely. So 28% of them are still below poverty line. I'm sure this 28% would have gone further down, because this particular numbers have been taken, roughly a year back. So definitely this has gone down very, very below, because of COVID. So what does this prove? ambiguity is quite obvious, right? So we're all living in a very ambiguous world. So our country is moving toward digital transformation, but the infrastructure, development, or for that matter, per capita consumption, sorry, per capita consumption of steel, or car, or for that matter anything, is quite low. Sorry, so it's quite low when compared to the other countries, as well as including China, which we compare quite gracefully. So what does this mean, my friends? Is we all live in a VUCA world, right? So volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So this is the world which we are living in. And how is the human resources department, in every organization for that matter, is getting ready to face the VUCA world, is crux of they sustaining the function within the organization. So. Like I said, every aspect of the business should be ready to face the VUCA world, including the human resource and the talent management, or for that matter, the competencies of the talent also should be ready to face the VUCA world. I'm not going to get into this. I'm going to straight get into, yeah. Okay, so I'm not going to touch only on the talent competency, or the effectiveness of the competency. It is there, but definitely, but I'm going to touch upon a couple of other aspects of HR, because it is interconnected with the talent of the organization. I hope, Professor Garima, that is okay, right? Okay, great. Uh, mm, so these are the pillars of human resources. Not sure what you're reading these days, but practically these are the 8 pillars of human resources these days. Practically speaking, it starts with talent acquisition, where you try and onboard employees into the organization. And then we have capability building, which is more making sure the organization is built with enough competencies to face the VUCA world. Then comes the talent management and performance management, which is more to do with making sure how your organization is performing, as well as the individual talent. Then we have talent management, which is more to do with identifying the high potentials within the organization, and making sure they are developed and ready for the deployment vertically and horizontally across the organization. Then comes the diversity and inclusion, which is a buzzword these days. I'm not going to touch upon that very much. I'm not going to introduce you what it is all about. Organization development is any kind of a initiative which affects positively the organization widely, or across length and breadth of the organization, is called organization development initiatives. That is also another pillar. Then comes the employee relations, including the engagement. So predominant amount of industrial relations, everything comes part of this. Then is analytics and MIS. Of course, this is also another buzzword which is catching up these days, especially after the COVID has stuck us. It has become very evident that every organization is turning their focus towards being digital ready. And of course, MIS and analytics plays a very major role in making sure the organization is digital ready. And of course, last but not the least is reward and the recognition, which is which in certain organization it forms part of comp and ben. Here, reward and recognition is a different ball game all put together. Okay, so while I spoke about 8 pillars, I'm not going to detail all the 8 pillars. It's going to be only these 5 pillars which I'm going to speak about in detail. Getting at the first thing, which is talent acquisition. So talent acquisition, is another is a very, very important aspect of organization culture building, or talent building for that matter. The reason is because how you bring in people really matters, your talent development or competency building all put together. So these are interconnected and well stitched, to make sure the organization is future ready, or is UCA ready? So these are a couple of insights which I've derived from couple of primary researches which I've done across various magazines and various white papers and things like that. So 83% of candidates say interview experience was bad, which means including it includes 83%, means including freshers like you all. 83% of you feel that interview experience was bad, which means you know when you attend an interview, regardless of you getting selected or not getting selected, 83% of them feel that interview experience was very very bad, which means I didn't really enjoy the interview experience. Yeah. Then we have another insight saying 75% of the candidates never hear back from the employers, which means we take interviews but we don't get back to you saying you're selected or not selected. That's what it says. Then 60% of the candidate felt the process too lengthy, which means the 100, you've got 5 rounds of interview, 6 rounds of interview, 10 rounds of interview, all those things. It makes it very lengthy and it makes it very drowsy, right? So overall, over 20 top talent never accept the offer owing to bad candidate experience, which is moment of truth. Which means you as a candidate, when you face an interview, of Kevin Care along with me, so I become the moment of truth of Kevin Care to all of you, right? So that's what happens. So because the bad experience, what happens is 20% of the top talent, I'm talking about only top talent, reject the offer because owing to the bad candidate experience, which means they don't accept the offer seeing that the interview experience is pretty bad. So what has Kevin Care done because of that is uh, Professor Garima, are we good on time, or should I go a little fast? Okay. So we are working on two different aspects to make sure the recruitment is soft, sorry, seamless, and it gives a very great experience to our candidates. One is applicant tracking system, and another is recruitment process outsourcing, which means all the operational aspect of recruitment is outsourced, as part of recruitment process outsourcing, which means like candidate searching or candidate screening, maintaining the database of resume, background verification, scheduling interviews, candidate selection process, negotiations and offer, and onboarding as well. So everything is actually outsourced to one of the subject matter expert, who comes and sits in our office, or of course now we live in a virtual world, who sits in our ecosystem by delivering us the value whichever is required. So having said this, does this mean that we don't have talent acquisition group? Yes, we do have talent acquisition group, but it's a very very thin org structure where we have a talent acquisition head and a person supporting the head of the talent acquisition. Then we have applicant tracking system to make sure candidate has a great experience of applying to the job and also getting interviewed. What applicant tracking system does is, it creates the job, it publishes the job, it also seeks, the job applications. It also, screens a bit, and also, it offers a solution to conduct interviews across, right? So that's what applicant tracking system does. So while doing this, what really happens within the organization? One is, the efficient utilization of the time. Second is the cost, cost of the whole process goes down a bit. Of course, quality comes in because we outsource it. There's no bias in there. Mm, Sorry. So next is scalability, which means today we are a six business based group with a couple of fledgling startups within the organization. Now those startups can become bigger organizations. So if it becomes bigger, are we ready to face such big business group and big business requirements? Yes, of course, the scalability will help us do that. And it gives us great insights because like we don't look at it with any bias or anything of that sort. And of course it also enables us with the compliance. And last but not the least, is the candidate experience, which means a richer candidate experience, right? Now coming to capability building, which is the crux of today's session. The capability building works on the competency building model. which means so how do people in organizations get trained? Okay, that's what is competency building or competency mapping, to analyze the training needs across the organization and offer training solutions to the to make sure the competencies are you know bridged properly. This is another fact which I came across a couple of days back, which says only 3% of the trained workforce in an organization use their learning from the training back to work, which means a person goes and attends a learning and development session. Only 3%, say 10 people attend, only 3 people get back to the the work with the learning. Others just forget it off. So what are we trying to do at Kevin Care? To make sure to bridge the gap. So what are we trying to do is using very innovative learning methodologies over here. For example, I'm not sure how many of you have heard Dialogue in the Dark. Dialogue in the Dark is a social initiative which runs a dark theme restaurant across India. It started from Australia, but it runs restaurants across India. I'm not sure whether it is there in Delhi or Bombay, but definitely it's there in all southern cities like Bangalore, in Hyderabad and Chennai. So what we've done is we've associated with them to make sure our cross-functional team has a team working principle, which means they enable us with a workshop in a dark place, a pitch dark place, where people can't even see each other. How do they create a dependability within each other and create a cohesive team? That's what this particular workshop does. And the second thing, you see a horse-shaped thing that's called, Leadership HQ. Again, we associate, with these kind of creative, learning solution providers. For example, Leadership in, yeah, HQ does training using horses. So that's again another, important initiative we do take. Then, we have some very interesting concept called invest in yourself, which means, you know, mm, every day all our employees get close to an hour of time to go to learn for themselves, which means they need to go through whatever is relevant to them to make sure they are updated to face the UKA world. That's what we try doing. So this is called as invest in yourself, where we don't push people, there is a pull for learning which happens. Then we have bite-sized learning. Bite-sized learning is predominantly the attention span of people these days, especially students like you, is gone down less than the goldfish. Just to tell you, the goldfish attention span is only 8 seconds or 7 seconds. And generation these days have gone far below that, which means you guys should be, say, 5 seconds or something like that. I'm not sure how you're listening to me even now, but that's the fact. So we wanted to create videos which are very, very small and very micro in nature, so that people can consume the content within, like, say, 5 minutes or 10 minutes or something of that sort. Not beyond that is what I'm trying to say. Then comes the learning experience platform. So this is yet again a very interesting initiative within the organization. Just like your Netflix and Amazon Prime or Facebook or Instagram, um, this is an app for learning. So what happens in a traditional learning management system is the content availability depends on learning and development department, which means it completely depends on what content I produce, and I keep it as part of the learning management system. But LXP is not that. It has its own, it brings contents from across the globe and throws to the people of the organization depending on the competencies which they have selected to be part of. Which means it is a content aggregator, like how Netflix is a movie aggregator or a series aggregator, and how your Amazon Prime is again a movie aggregator and a series aggregator, something of that sort. You get content from, say, Harvard or Pennsylvania University or Deakin University in Australia, or for that matter Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore. Everything gets accumulated over here, and depending on your competency level, there is a face page, like just like how you have, sorry, so just like how you have your Facebooks and Instagrams and Netflix. So just like that, you get based on your interest. For example, when for example, my Netflix will have a lot of understated movies because I'm interested in understated movies. If you guys are interested in supernatural movies, of course your Netflix face page is going to be flooded with a lot of supernatural movies like Stranger Things or anything for that matter. So that's how it is. Similarly, LXP will have contents based on your interest and your reading behavior. Mm. So it's a AI, artificial intelligence based platform which brings in that relevant content to the face page of people. So these are a couple of initiatives which we have taken to make sure our competencies are built and also driven to the efficacy to a optimal efficacy level. So what happens when we do this? Again, the same old um, uh, uh, seven advantages. One is time, spending, quality, scalability, insights, compliance, and of course your customer experience, which means in this case it is employee experience, right? So I'm not going to get into this. I'm going to straight get into diversity and inclusion. So diversity and inclusion, labor force participation of by women in India is only 18%, which means uh, you know um, uh, on an average, I'm telling on an average, an organization like yours or ours, whatever it is, there's only 18% of the workforce which is women workforce, which is fairly less, right? Not even 20, not even 25 or 50%. Generally it should be 50%, right? 50% women, 50% men. That's how it should be, but that's not the case. It's not even 25%. So which means uh, a workplace like ours or like yours has only 18% of the workforce which is women workforce, pathetically and dismally low. So that is the reason, if you see, a lot of organizations, a lot of corporate worlds have now picked up something called diversity and inclusion to make sure we hire specifically and purposefully diverse background people so that the diversity increases far beyond from where we are today. But diversity does not mean only gender is in place, right? So it is far beyond gender. Diversity means, so diversity means gender, age, geography, and also type of employment, right? So below is the dashboard. Of course, this is not the dashboard of dashboard of our organization. This is a typical diversity and inclusion dashboard which I have developed. So this is only for education purpose, not, this is not something which our organization is practicing thus far. Of course, Kevin Care is also trying to step up with respect to diversity and inclusion, but as of now we don't have such a dashboard in place. So what this dashboard means is, the gender, for example, again in gender, it is not only male and female, it is also LGBTQ, which comes in. And with respect to age, how does all the four generations are within the same campus. For example, our organization has all the four generations in the same campus, which means baby boomers, Gen X, Gen Y, and millennials all put together in one campus. Then we have region, which means each organization should have diversity with respect to region where they belong to, which means an organization should have people from north, west, south, east, and northeast, and global level as well. So that's the breakup which I've shown here. And of course, type of employees, which means permanent and flexible employees, freelancers, and contractual employees. Why is this coming up? Is the reason is because just like if you all go to any famous hill stations across, or any famous tourist locations across, you will see a lot of foreigners coming in, especially Israelis, or for that matter people from UK or US coming in. They say that 6 months we work and 6 months we take break and come across, right? So what does that mean? So the next generation of our country also will become something like that. For example, I have a daughter of 4-year-old. She's going to become more of that, where she may say that I will not work for 24 bar 7 and all 365 days. I may take 6 months of sabbatical, maybe yearly ones, and then go roam around the world and come back. That's what even now it happens but at a very very significantly low level. But as the generation passes by, definitely this will happen. The reason is because, of course, the base level is all fixed. There is a there is roti kapdi sorry roti kapda makan already there intact with us. Obviously they take a easier route to earn money, only to satisfy their higher level needs rather than the primary needs. So this also eventually will change. So obviously, our organization also should get ready to such employees as well, so that we don't miss on the top talent just because they are flexible, or they are freelancers. That should not happen. So this is how generally a TNI board should look like. Now coming to Amber, employee engagement, we have discarded the Great Place to Work, or Eon Hewitt surveys or anything of that sort, and we have onboarded something called Amber, which is an artificial intelligence tool again, which does the survey of employee not only once in a year, or once in 2 years or something like that. It does survey every 1 month, every regular interval of a person's, of an employee's life cycle. For example, when I joined the organization, after a month I got the Amber link, and again the Amber link comes to me, post a month, then post 3 months, then post 6 months, then post 9 months, and then post 12 months, and 1.5 year, then 2 years, then 2.5 years, 3 years, something like that. So this particular Amber, which is a feedback chatbot, gets all the details from an individual that is an employee, and puts it back into analytics. And the dashboard which is there at the bottom is something which the HR BPs will look at. So for example, the present company's mood is 4.2 out of 5, which means it is fairly less when compared to benchmarked mood score, which is close to 4.5, right? So which means roughly, say say 10% of people or 5% of the people are not really happy with our organization. So we try to find why they're not happy and what really will make them happy. So yeah, so this fairly covers the employee engagement, which is more to do with the Amber, this one. uh, yeah, I think I've come to the fair end of the session. If at all we have Q&A, I think we'll go ahead with the Q&A.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for for sharing such relevant information with our students, and they also had an opportunity today to learn about the new trends which are prevailing in the industry with regard to your organization, to be very specific. So certain questions have cropped up. I hope we can start with that.
Please go ahead. Yes.
Okay. How can the learners and corporate aspirants keep a tap on the skill requirements of the market to develop and build the competencies to be a perfect match for the recruiter's profile?
Okay. See, it's a good question, of course, but a very very difficult question to answer. The reason is because there's no set answer for this, because things are changing very rapidly day by day.
Right.
But of course, let me put this point blank. One thing which is picking up across across organizations, especially recruiters are looking for is the digital capability within each and every individual of the individual
Right.
of the freshers. So since the organization which is with employees of our sort are of course computer literate and everything, but of course when it comes to digital, we are banking upon the younger generations like you, right? So we want you to be more and more literate, and you help us in the digital transformation more than anything else. I think that's something which we are
Right.
looking at very very evidently.
Okay. How has the pandemic like COVID changed the dynamics of recruitment overall?
Of course, the first 3 months was quite anxious. We stopped our recruitments, though we never fired anybody out of our organization. We were grateful to be part of this, institution, because there was no, not even a single soul which got fired. fired. There was no pay cut. In fact, after close to 9 months or something, we had a pay rise as well. So a very great organization which we are part of. So specifically we were quite anxious with sorry. So we were quite anxious about the future of how it would turn up and things like that. But one thing what really helped us is the agility of our organization, the fast paced movement of our organization, which helped us to keep up to the pace of the digital movement. So that's something which really helped us in keeping up to the pace of like what the world was in the COVID or during the lockdown. So of course that helped us a lot. But of course now the recruitment is picking up, is getting back to normal again.
Right. Okay. So do you see India work from home ready? What challenges do you see in assessing the productivity of the employees?
Okay, so this is a very personal question. Yeah, so India, if you ask, is a work from home ready? I think definitely no. The reason is because we are yet to draw a very thick line between life and work, right? So that's a big problem, in the Indian culture. To whatever I've understood from, of course, I've not worked for any organizations outside India, and of course, I've not worked for a global MNC as well. Uh, mm, so what I understand is the concept of work from home, of that matter, work and life balance, being at home, is quite difficult unless and until the organization propagates it to make sure there is a thick line between the organization and the workplace, sorry, the workplace and home. So it's quite difficult is what I would say. I think it may take further more time, but definitely we should get ready because there's no other option for us.
True. Looking at the parameters and conditions, of course, we need to adapt to the new normal. So, despite that, Kevin Care has diversified into dairy and snack sector as well, but still people are of the opinion that it is a company into beauty-based products only. What are you doing to change the perception of the masses?
Okay. So first is, we most of our products are very region specific, right? So for example, the food and snacks, the food for that matter is very south driven. Snacks for that matter is very west driven, and similarly we have beverages, which is again very south driven, and we have a couple of brands which are pan India based. But again, there's a lot to grow beyond a certain region. So what we are trying to do right now is we are planning to grow beyond the region specific brands by launching a couple of products which are palatable across the length and breadth of India. That's what we're looking at. Of course, we've lined up a couple of new product launches which may get launched in a couple of months, which may bring up a bit of a relevance to other regions as well, so that this becomes a non beauty cosmetic based organization as well,
Right,
once these
right.
food, snacks, and beverages grow beyond certain regions.
Right. So usually if we look at the demographics these days, people are more inclined or women are more inclined towards or they're opening up towards organic products and beauty as well. So what is your take at Kevin Care?
Mm, okay, so that's a question which I think a marketing guy will be able to answer. But okay, I'll give you my personal view on this. See, organic, is just a traditional way of what our Indians were doing before. It is not something very new. So it is just that making sure it's becoming a fad again, where it has its own cost towards it. So what it basically means is anything you buy pure is cost attached. That's what you're trying to say.
Right.
Means anything which is adulterated or anything which is sub quality standard or whatever you call it as. I think so that becomes more less costly. So it's all a fad is what I would try to say, Garima.
Okay, great. Um, Potential job seekers always mention the lack of opportunities in the market. It is the scenario like that. Is the scenario like that, or there are issues of unmatched competencies also in the market?
Okay. See, of course, the second point is quite valid because there are unmatched competencies across, the places. And of course, the shortage of the jobs are also there, because if the shortage of the unmatched competencies are there, at least we will hire people should be there, right? So we can always upskill the people based on their attitude. Sorry, we'll hire the people based on their attitude and upskill them. Not all organizations are ready for that, because it is investment driven initiative, in terms of hiring somebody who knows a little bit of what they have to do, upskilling them, and then putting back to them to the work. It's quite a difficult task, but it's a very sustainable way, is what I would say, and it sustains for a longer time, is what I would say. There it is more of a a chicken and egg story, where joblessness, as well as the underskill blame each other to make sure there is a kind of a joblessness situation across the country.
Right. So as we're talking about upskilling, and this is from a very student point perspective, this question has come from, what is the process that can help an individual identify his or her area to make efforts towards upskilling and competency building?
I think this fairly connects to the first question which you had asked, with respect to what does a recruitment person expects in a person to
Right.
be developed. So I would like to emphasize again on digital competency, which is more to do with how are you making sure you update yourselves with analytics, or for that matter other digital aspects, to make sure you're digital ready. Once you're digital ready, and of course your traditional learning, when both mixes together, I think you become a beautiful talent, is what I suggest, Garima.
Okay. Any common element in these skill sets that are uniform throughout domains and industries? So, apart from digital skills, which you've spoken about and emphasized upon, so anything which is common and every student, irrespective of their area and specialization or domain, should definitely have in them.
Okay, one is execution excellence, because the key in a success of any organization, or product, or process, or for that matter anything of that matter, be it even a wedding, right? So execution excellence is one important factor, one important competency, which widely goes across length and breadth of all job functions across the world, across all the organizations, because that's one thing which really matters along. So ideas, you, me, anybody can come and give, but
Right.
execution is the
Execution.
crux of everything. So I feel execution excellence is one big area which cuts across all sections of the job, job function and job, and organization, anything for that matter. Be it even you take a ISRO, you take a rocket launch by ISRO, or for that matter, your parents doing a wedding, anything for that matter, everything. Execution excellence comes as the crux of making sure a successful event happens, successful project happens. So yeah.
Very well said. So last question from our side, that being a recruiter, being the head HR, so what do you actually look out in a professional, in specifically a fresher, when you go out for hiring as an organization?
Okay, come again. I didn't get your question.
I'm asking that what specifically are the recruiters or your organization looking at when they go for hiring a fresher?
Okay. See, of course, the confidence level of people, that's the first thing. And of
Mhm.
course, the attitude of, the students, because that's very, very important, because, all said and done, we also know, there has to be a bit of upskilling, potential employee from a college who's a fresher who comes into our organization, will need upskilling, is something which we all know. So of course, it's always better to be truthful, and be mindful of what you speak, because what you speak becomes the dictionary for the person to ask questions on, right?
Right.
So it's very, very important on what you speak. Sorry, in fact, this is what I keep saying, to a lot of students whomever I meet. It is the steering wheel of the interview is in your hand, right? You can always steer the wheels across wherever you want, because it is you who's giving the cue for them to question back to you. So So it is important for you to keep yourself, in a very calm and a composed way, to give that, questions to be instigated to the interviewer in a very right way. So speak
Right.
what you're confident of, and give hints on what your confidence level is, and accordingly the interviews will turn across. That's my answer to that.
Sure. Thank you so much, sir, for providing us such great answers as well as information. The session was indeed very, very informative, not just for one batch or a particular student, but for everybody who is not even interested in recruitment. I think we've gained a lot many lessons about what the world field today, work field expects out of students today. Once again, I would like to extend this vote of thanks to you. And to acknowledge your presence here at Asian Education Group, we would like to present a memento to you. Can we please have the memento? That's
Thank
for
you.
you, sir.
Thank you. I'm humbled to get, okay. See, I'm not head of human resources. I'm only heading the learning and development, OD, and talent management function. So possibly just correct that off so that,
Sure, we'll get that corrected there, sir. Definitely. Thank you so much for your time and energy.
thank you so
We look
much.
forward to a continued association with you in future as well.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Garima, and thank you so much, Ravi, and Mokshita. I don't know, who she. I think she's a student, or from the placement committee or whatever. I'm so glad that she's been following up with me, continuously to make sure this happens. Very, very, very much of a gratitude to her who's been following up with me, throughout this day. So thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. She's part of the CRC department. We'll convey your message to her for sure.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.